Okay, wow, so it has been a really tough month for Games Workshop. The company have recently found themselves in a little bit of a pickle, a bit of a crisis, a bit of a disaster lately. And the Warhammer community are extremely annoyed. According to some, 2024 is the year that Warhammer 40k died. But I disagree. This Warhammer disaster is actually fantastic. And not because it means the death of Warhammer or anything, but for a different, far more important reason. You see, last week we had the Nova Open. This is a huge wargaming convention. There's a ton of different tabletop experiences at it. You can play war games, board games, you can even roleplay. Though, pro tip, you can roleplay in any hotel that you give a pseudonym to when booking. And there's even paint classes and seminars. The Nova Open is a pretty big convention, most famous for the tournaments and organized play that takes place at it. Overall, it's pretty focused on competitive gaming. That all said, the bit that most people look forward to, and this is just math, most people exist outside of Washington State, sorry Obama, is, of course, the Warhammer Reveals show. Every year, Games Workshop take the opportunity of the Nova Open captive audience to show off a whole bunch of reveals and new models for their various game lines. They do this live at the convention, but there's also a live stream that takes place on Twitch, and this year was no different. Turns out though that this time, just like giving an unsolicited blood donation to a homeless man, it was a massive mistake. You see, the event this year was pretty hyped up, as is typical for most Warhammer events. Most of them are basically approached via rocket ship by Warhammer fans, but Games Workshop really came to play first in this case, because ahead of the event, we got a big announcement of reveals for Warhammer Age of Sigmar and Blood Bowl, and there was even a little graphic produced that said we'd all be getting to see the future of Warhammer 40k, Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy, and Old World. That's a ton of new content to check out, and it makes sense. The Nova Open Warhammer shows usually show off quite a bit. Last year was pretty massive, for example. We got to see a ton of new stuff in 2023, from Trogs to Space Marines to Third Nipples, though that was just on my private stream. So hype was very, very high. For my own part, I was planning on streaming the show live, but you know, I've been really ill lately, so I just wasn't going to, and it takes place at like 1 a.m. my time. I'll only stay up that late for charity or to watch the milkman make his deliveries. He doesn't know that I'm watching, but he can feel it, and that's enough for me. His milk has been pretty vital over the last year. It's basically the only sustenance I get anymore. That is until I discovered Factor. Factor delivers ready-made meals directly to you, meaning no prep and therefore no mess. That's right, you can get chef-prepared meals onto your dinner table within 2 minutes, allowing you to spend more time focusing on your hobby. You know, buying miniatures. Plus, the price will help with that hobby too, because instead of shelling out for expensive takeaways, you can instead get the convenience of delivery, but with way less money spent on much nicer, chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals. Plus, for the very fancy boys out there, you can get gourmet plus meals, ooh la la, as well as calorie-smart meals, and there's also keto, vegan, and veggie options too. And they're all dietitian approved. Not to mention that there's also snack options like breakfast, smoothies, and more. Factor is infinitely flexible, letting you pause or reschedule your deliveries at any time. So get 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month of orders using my link. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. How can this possibly be profitable for Factor? I have no idea, but every single sign up directly supports this channel and helps me keep making content. So take advantage of this while it lasts, because those guys are idiots. I mean, thank you Factor for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so the reveal show. It was split into various segments, each dedicated to a different game. Games Workshop started with Blood Bowl, which, you know, a little morsel to wet the old whistle, like a fun-sized glass of Guinness, which is a drink that my people have historically been addicted to, resulting in myriad devastating healthcare consequences. Speaking of which, Chaos Dwarves. Yes, Chaos Dwarves. They're finally here. Games Workshop has delivered, and they showed off a new Chaos Dwarf team for Blood Bowl, which genuinely, they look pretty good. They're a fan favorite team and they're much requested. So I'm happy to see them finally get to the pitch. And the models are fun. The dwarf blocker models are pretty good, if a little basic, but you cannot deny the beauty of a giant hat. So we're gonna give them a 10 out of 10. The hobgoblins look great. I actually love the subtle differences to their faces when you compare them to a regular goblin. I'm a bit of a goblin aficionado, so you know, I did spot these things. These hobgoblins have got rounder noses and softer eyes. So soft, in fact, you could cuddle up with them at night and whisper your secrets. You know, and do regular stuff. Though the standouts in this team are the Flamesmiths. I love that they're stopping for a little tea break. Pretty inventive sculpt, honestly. Though they suffer a lot from the standard Blood Bowl problem. That is, all the teams consist of the same sprue doubled and put in a box. So you always end up with weird duplicates like this. Still though, a wagon finger never went amiss. Then right after the Blood Bowl show, we got to see the Age of Sigmar releases. Oh boy. Games Workshop started the Age of Sigmar reveals pretty strong. They came with a named character, Iridan the Witness, who, I don't know, must be in Sigmar Witness Protection Program ahead of their testimony in the big trial against Nagash, I guess. And it might just be the color scheme for this model, but the feathers here on this giant monster are the best feathers that I've ever seen sculpted on a Games Workshop model. I mean, this is the first time that Games Workshop I've ever approached feathers maybe looking not like plastic, so well done there. These look a little bit organic. Overall, I think this might actually be one of the coolest Stormcast models that we have gotten in a while. I love the meal coif hood and the spooky little face hidden away there. Nice, nice. The Lord Celestin reveal was pretty forgettable though. I like that they are posed a little differently from other models in the Stormcast range. And yeah, they have a couple of different choices of weapon. That's neat, but I don't know. They just look like another Stormcast to me. Speaking of which, we also saw the Reclusians too, but we've already seen the Reclusians in the Skaventide box, so, you know, not that exciting. There's another Lord Terminus model shown off here as well, though that one isn't as nice as the Skaventide box set model in my opinion, so bit forgettable. Though that said, the paint job on this model is incredible. Look at the hourglass here. You can see actual grains of sand in there. That's not real sand. Someone painted that. So, you know, good luck on your own. We also got a cheeky Space Marine model in here too. Yeah, we did. This is the Lord Relictor. Literally the same model as the Primaris Chaplain here, just, you know, not in space. The skull helm is cool. I like the hammer, but I just can't get over how much that banner is. It's just a skeleton on a board again. I mean, we've seen that before with Space Marines. The silhouette is really evocative of the Space Marines for me, so it just kind of takes away from the whole model. Though if it's a Space Marine, it's a pretty cool Space Marine, so there's that. Then there's also the Stormstrike Paladors. I like these guys. I think they look cool. They're probably some of the coolest looking non-horse cavalry models the Games Workshop have ever made, which you'd think wouldn't be a lot, but it's actually been quite a lot. They look a little bit plain though, but they're just basic cavalry. That's fine. They look good. But my favorite model of the night was probably this one, the Public Lavatory where Stormcast men meet up with others for, business. Yeah, that'll do. Still, that's quite a lot of reveals for Age of Sigmar coming up, on top of all the Skaven that we saw last month and are currently out for pre-order now. Quite a bit coming on. As one would expect, the new edition of the game was just released. Whew, that was a lot to get through, and we're just getting started. That's just the reveals for one game. After that segment of the show, we still had Warhammer 40k, Kill Team with its new edition, the Old World, Horus Heresy, Warcry, all to go. So much more left to show, and a full 40 minutes left to show it in. People were hyped to see what was in store for the future, and that's when this happened. Here's the Warhammer 40k reveals. Old World, Horus Heresy, and Warcry. Yeah, turns out that was it. Age of Sigmar and Blood Bowl, that was all the reveals. The segments of the show that were dedicated to every other game were just brief chats about, like, whatever. Just whatever came out in the last few months over the last year, and then a few vague statements about how next year we'll have stuff coming probably too, and that was it. Show over. There was literally nothing else in the show to see. No more reveals, no more models. Well, except there was a wee Middle-earth model shown off at the very end as a bit of a teaser. This was Wolf, and I don't know, that's a model of an anime, and there was nothing really concrete about the new edition of the Lord of the Rings game that I was kind of hoping for, so that teaser felt like a bit of a missed opportunity. The model looks fine though. A little bit cartoony for Lord of the Rings, in my opinion. So yeah, that was the show. And bear in mind that people actually traveled to this convention for these reveals, and lots of people stayed up until like 1 a.m. for this, or to see the Milkman. Suffice to say, this show has been very controversial within the Warhammer community. Yeah, that's putting it a little lightly. People were really, really disappointed, and Games Workshop became inundated with complaints, criticism, and outrage. There was a lot of outrage. There was this much outrage. Oh God. And I think that the worst part of all of this is that although Games Workshop didn't really promise any new model reveals for games like 40k at this event, I mean, everyone expected something at least, but okay, they didn't promise anything new. Games Workshop did at least promise new roadmaps at the minimum. They said they'd show us what's on the way for the various game lines that they run. And yes, Games Workshop did deliver roadmaps for like every game. It's just that, well, I mean, look at them for yourself. These are the roadmaps that we have to go on. Really? Really? This is it? Because these look like the roadmaps you'd get from Maggie the Frog outside the goddamn convention center. Ooh, I see new models in your future. Well, Jesus Christ, thanks for that one, but I could have guessed it. These are really, really bad roadmaps. There's just no information in them at all about what is forthcoming, with perhaps the Horus Heresy roadmap being the worst. Under 2025, some poor intern has just written, "Thanks." All right, thanks, I guess. Some of my patrons and I chatted about this after the event, and they've suggested that this might have been originally an internal presentation, or originally for internal consumption, and then just given out to the public so that we all had something to chew on, which sounds kind of plausible. And oh, and if you want in on those convos, by the way, check out my Patreon link below. I hang out with patrons every month, but I suspect that it's more likely that Games Workshop was originally intending to announce Kill Team at this event, but they had to announce it like a week earlier because leaks had emerged showing off the new Kill Teams in those box sets. And regardless of circumstance, Games Workshop have f***ed up pretty hard with these roadmaps. They really just aren't good enough. They're too vague. Roadmaps are actually great when they give direction because they let consumers plan out their purchases and budget for the future. They actually serve a legitimate purpose beyond just marketing hype, even if certain corporations have kind of gone overboard with them and abused their role. But these roadmaps tell us nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. There's nothing to plan for here. Will there be upcoming army boxes, single models? What the fuck is a special chaos treat? Is it a brand new type of doggy biscuit? I don't know. No one knows. These suck, even in generating hype at all. They're anti-hype, really. And so I totally get the concerns and the complaints from the community. But then there's also the secret news from this event, the one that viewers quickly put together, because these roadmaps do actually tell us something. They tell us that there's nothing left for Warhammer in 2024 as far as new releases are concerned. Warhammer is done for the year. All the roadmaps are talking about 2025. That's it. It's over. The shop is closed to come back in 2025, which still seems like a very futuristic year and date. Am I wrong? I feel like I'm in RoboCop 5. Come on. What's going on? Turn it back. And this has really upset people too. That's at least 4 solid months of no more releases or reveals for the game. And people are talking like it's going to be a very long, lonely winter. It's a Warhammer disaster. 4 months in the cold. The end of Warhammer 40k. People are jonesing for some more FOMO, goddammit. And in this sense, the hype machine that's constantly kept running on the blood of dead babies and internet tears by Games Workshop has kind of backfired on them here, because people are used to a constant rate of releases, and it's actually very unusual for for Games Workshop to ever take a break. And now that they're doing so, people don't know how to handle it. It's like we've all been hopelessly addicted to crack, and now the crack's gone for Christmas. You know, f Santa, give me back the crack. I want my crack. I need my crack. You have to get me more crack. Here's the thing though, Warhammer is not the be-all and end-all of the hobby. It's more like the apple of the hobby, the apple of wargaming. It's an enclosed ecosystem, kept separate at all times by the marketing department of Games Workshop and a violently aggressive hype cycle. And frankly, it's kinda weird to see people bemoan the fact that the hobby is now dead for the rest of the year. It's kinda like witnessing video gamers crying that they're going to be bored over Christmas because there's no new Call of Duty game coming out in December. Meanwhile, we have Space Marine 2 to play, Age of Mythology Retold, Webcom Secrets, holy shit, try a different game, or some crack. There's a lot more to life, and it would be weird if that was the state of video games, right? Well, welcome to wargaming, because while people are outraged that winter is going to be really quiet for the hobby, it's actually not going to be quiet at all. It's anything but. It's actually going to be one of the biggest winters in the history of miniature wargaming. I'm serious, if you like building miniatures, painting miniatures, reading about miniatures, playing games with your miniatures, anything about the hobby, then this winter is fucking huge, with or without any new Warhammer releases. Firstly, we have the new edition of Bolt Action. 3rd edition is coming out in a couple of weeks. That is a huge new release. Bolt Action is a massive game. It's also incredibly fun. Every single Warhammer player who has any interest at all in tabletop gaming in the world should try this game at least once. Not having played it is like not having played The Witcher or Warcraft 3 or My Shameless Stepmom. It's a huge foundational text of wargaming, and a new edition is coming in September, and it's looking really good. On top of that, we have a new edition of Infinity coming out this winter as well. That's a sci-fi skirmish war game, and it's one of the biggest in the world, and it's filled with beautiful miniatures. It's definitely a contender for the best miniature sculpts in the entire hobby at least, and there's a lot of buzz around the upcoming new edition. I've heard really good things. Or there's the new Firefight starter set that's coming from Mantic Games. If you like sci-fi, this is one of the biggest sci-fi war games in the market. Very similar to Warhammer, but it's a different spin on the similar formula. Now, this isn't a new edition of Firefight, but the new starter set is coming with a bunch of beautiful new miniatures for the Asterion faction, who have gotten a major glow up. So that's looking pretty good. You might want to check that out. Night Models have also just come out with the new Game of Thrones skirmish game too, though that's probably about 7 years too late to board the hype train. Still, nice sculpts at least. Even within the realm of Warhammer, there's a new edition of Kill Team coming out in October. Chaos models are being released for the old world. There's a lot happening. This winter is a big period for wargaming, and the rest of the year is jam-packed. I get it. Most people play Warhammer 40k. They want more content for the game that they play. But to me, this feels like a great opportunity while the hype train is stuck in station to try some other stuff outside of the constant FOMO of Games Workshop marketing. Take your hobby budget and try a different game. Stop being a Warhammerer and start being a wargamer that happens to have a Warhammer army. Honestly, I wish Games Workshop would take more 4-month-long breaks like this. It gives the rest of the wargaming hobby some room to breathe, or even just some space for gamers to make progress on their backlog. Because when we really get down to it, Games Workshop have a very wild rate of releases. Like a recidivist sex offender. There's new models every single week, and it's just not sustainable. I mean, presumably it's not. Presumably that's why they're taking such a big break this year. Though, that said, they have another factory on the way, so maybe next year we're in for even more Warhammer more often, as they like to say. It's a lot more Warhammer. A million times Warhammer. A billion trillion Warhammer. And I kind of hope not, honestly, because no one game should dominate the hobby to the extent that Warhammer does. We don't want a monopoly because Monopoly is shit. I've played it. I don't want to ever play it again. So, you know, check out other war games. Check out the War Games subreddit. Join my Discord. Subscribe to this channel, or check out my Patreon, because we're dedicated to wargaming, including Warhammer, but not exclusively. And that's really hard to do on a platform like YouTube. So if you want to help me continue to do that, check out my Patreon. There's a link below, or check out the sponsor of today's video, Factor, because every new subscription to them directly benefits this channel. Also, a massive thanks to my patrons, especially CryptoKev, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.